Mr. Chairman. Let me preface my remarks by saying that none of the events I will talk about tonight occurred with the participation of Superintendent David Lewis. Mr. Lewis, we continue to hold out high hopes for your future as our superintendent. I'm here tonight because this marks the first meeting of the board since I was cleared of any wrongdoing whatsoever by the GBI and the Georgia Attorney General in the investigation that was concluded 17 days ago. I want to be clear. I'm not here for an apology. I'm certain such an apology would not be genuine anyway, but I am here to continue the process of holding this board accountable. For months now, Mr. Varner, you claimed that you could not comment on these matters because the investigation was ongoing. And that is ironic, because it was you, we now know it was you and John Phillips who insisted that this investigation be instigated. And now that the investigation is over, there you sit. Now we've all seen the investigative report, and I'm beginning to understand why the cat has had your tongue all along. You, sir, abused the power given you by the people of District 5 and as chair of this board. The public needs to know that you used your authority to attempt to smear a critic like me, someone who had the nerve to speak out. You wanted to silence me and the others who want to bring malfeasance to light. And while I was exonerated by the GBI and Attorney General, the GBI's investigative report did uncover corruption in the Muskogee County School District. It may take more than 5 minutes to deliver my remarks tonight, Mr. Chairman, and I ask for some leeway. While the agenda may be long, you may have several excuses for not letting me speak. I seriously doubt there is anything more important to be discussed than what I have to say tonight, unless, of course, you were involved in some of this corruption that I'm going to describe. As I mentioned, we now have a report that was generated from the GBI, and we have answers to many lingering questions. 3 in particular. Answer number 1, we now know that the GBI investigation was launched in an illegal closed meeting of this school board. That is significant. That happened on February the 18th, 2013. That's where what is described as a consensus was reached to call in the GBI. And it's not a coincidence that the suggestion to call in the GBI was made by board member Pat Hughley-Green, the same Pat Hughley-Green who greased the skids for A.J. Sr.'s daughter to get a job at Fort Middle School, which is in the heart of Miss Hughley-Green's district. So why was the meeting illegal? Well, there are several reasons, but the most obvious is because there is but one way to get a consensus, and that's a vote. And at that meeting, a consensus was reached, according to the GBI report, that the GBI be called in. Under Georgia law, it is against the law for a school board to take a vote in a closed meeting. Answer number 2 we received. I remember wondering when I heard about the investigation, what in the world could have happened that would cause the GBI to get involved? After all, we know this is nothing more than a political dispute. You know, I knew, and those close to me knew I had done nothing wrong, much less anything illegal. We now know that this entire investigation was based on falsehoods that were told by you, Mr. Chairman, and the now conveniently absent former interim superintendent, John Phillips. And these falsehoods were told to Columbus Police Chief Ricky Boren and GBI Special Agent Wayne Smith. These falsehoods include, but are not limited to, number 1, that Senator McCoon wanted the legal business of this board for himself. There was never a shred of evidence to support that allegation. Number 2, that Senator McCoon threatened to withhold state funding if this board voted to keep their no-bid lawyers who were paid over twice the going rate. And number 3, that the alleged threats and intimidation by Senator McCoon and myself continued after the vote to keep the no-bid lawyers on the payroll. For some reason, you guys were working overtime to get the attention off of you and on to Senator McCoon and myself. There were many other falsehoods told by certain board members as the investigation went forward, but they are too numerous to mention due to the fact that my comments will be somewhat limited, I'm sure. Suffice it to say, the accusers didn't do a very good job of keeping their stories straight. the GBI, and the Attorney General, and for Senator McCoon, the Senate Ethics Committee saw right through it. Finally, answer number 3, perhaps the most important and significant answer we received from this investigation and post-investigation. Now we finally have an explanation for some very curious things that went on beginning after the elections of July 31st of last year that culminated just recently when we learned that an attempt is now being made to hire A.J. Sr.'s daughter as a teacher in this school district. As we have heard, another vote must apparently be retaken on that issue due to Ms. Sr. breaking the anti-nepotism law at the last board meeting. Consider these points. A.J. Sr. ran as part of the Boot the Board ticket when she was elected as a board member last summer. Among other things, the stated purpose of Boot the Board was to hold this body more accountable, instill a much stronger sense of ethics, stop the practice of overpaying lawyers, stop other wasteful spending, and generally reset the priorities of this board. But a funny thing happened to A.J. Sr. on the way to reforming this board. Shortly after she was sworn in, Ms. Sr. became unresponsive to attempted email and text communications to those of us who put her in office. And that was very much unlike her. During the campaign, she was very easy to reach. Well, this board had the first meeting of the year, and Ms. Sr. voted to rehire the lawyers she had promised to vote to replace during the campaign. And as we all remember, Superintendent John Phillips was the poster boy for keeping the lawyers and their no-bid contract. And month after month, A.J. Sr. voted in lockstep with the desires of John Phillips. I don't think it's possible to find a situation where Ms. Sr. voted against the wishes of former interim Superintendent John Phillips since Ms. Sr. has been on the board. Even when it came to constructing a $500,000 storage shed for outdated school records while our kids are stuck attempting to learn in rusted-out trailers masquerading as portable classrooms, A.J. Sr. was there for John Phillips. A.J. voted to cut over 60 jobs of our school's janitors, those least able to defend themselves, in favor of outsourcing their jobs. Again, A.J. was there voting for the proposal put forth by John Phillips. And don't let this get past you. The janitors have to bid for their work, but the lawyers don't. And when John Phillips' work was, well, we thought it was complete, A.J. couldn't help herself, voting to give John Phillips an extra $25,000 or so to stick around as an unneeded assistant to Mr. Lewis for an extra 6 weeks. Let me pause and be very clear here. My criticism of the events surrounding A.J. Sr.'s daughter are not directed toward Ms. Sr.'s daughter. I've met one of, I think she has two daughters. I've met one of them. One has been in my house, and I can't remember if this is the same young lady or not. This, however, is about A.J. Sr., Pat Hughley-Green, John Phillips, and anyone else who had knowledge of the events I described tonight. So, big question, how could A.J. Sr. continue time and time again to vote against her own campaign platform and for John Phillips?
Mr. Myers, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
We're
I'm not about
almost 9 minutes. How much time do you have left?
Very little.
A minute?
Probably.
Okay. Let's scrap that for 1 minute if you don't mind.
So how could A.J. Sr. continue time and time again to vote against her own campaign platform and for John Phillips? Well, we finally know. We know because of an Open Records Act request, that just 6 days before the first meeting of the new school board on January 14, 2013, A.J. Sr.'s daughter applied for a teaching position in our school district. Ms. Sr.'s daughter has no teaching experience and does not hold a certificate to teach. Yet all of a sudden there seemed to be a place for her to teach language arts at Fort Middle School in the heart of Ms. Hughley-Green's district. Go figure. Who held the keys to making this happen? John Phillips. I don't know what else you can call it except corruption. This must be rectified. And for you board members who are going to re-vote apparently on this vote, now that you have the knowledge of what's gone on and what's happened behind the scenes, it's on you now. I know there's 2 or 3 of you that don't care, and you're going to vote for it anyway, come hell or high water. Good luck to you. But those of you who know, you're going to decide whether it's business as usual or whether some leaders are going to step forward when the vote on Ms. Sr. is retaken. And I thank you for your attention.